Right now, there's a good chance one of these four is sitting on your kitchen counter, your nightstand, or bolted to your living room shelf, quietly listening for a word that might not even need to be said correctly to wake it up. Four smart speaker brands and categories that have all faced real lawsuits, real settlements, or real documented security research over the exact same core accusation: recording you when you never asked them to. Here's the question worth asking before any of this, and it's the one thing that ties this entire video together. When a company gets sued for secretly recording you and settles for tens of millions of dollars, does that actually mean the problem got fixed? We checked. And the honest answer is no. Not one of the three biggest names in this industry has confirmed a technical fix to the actual behavior that got them sued. What changed was money changing hands and some new fine print. What didn't change is what's sitting in the device itself. That distinction matters more than it might sound like at first. A settlement compensates you for what already happened. It doesn't promise anything about what happens tomorrow, the next time you're standing in your kitchen having a conversation that has nothing to do with setting a timer or checking the weather. Before we get into it, if this is useful to you, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here, because I break down exactly this kind of thing every single week, the stuff hiding inside devices you talk to every day without a second thought. We're counting down 4 smart speaker brands and categories, backed by federal lawsuits, class action settlements, and independent security research. And stick around to the end, because after the 4, I'm giving you real practical tips to actually reduce how much these devices hear no matter which one you already own. Let's start with number 4. At number 4, generic budget smart speakers. This one doesn't come down to a single brand name. It comes down to a $2 chip sitting inside more than 1 billion devices worldwide, including a huge share of the unfamiliar off-brand smart speakers sold on general marketplaces. The bait is the price. A full smart speaker, sometimes a fraction of what Amazon, Google, or Apple charge, promising the same basic voice control without the recognizable name attached. Here's the mechanic, and it's worth being precise about this one because the story got more complicated after it broke. In March 2025, Spanish security researchers at Tarlogic Security discovered 29 undocumented commands buried in the Bluetooth firmware of the ESP32, a chip made by Espressif that powers an enormous share of budget Wi-Fi and Bluetooth-connected devices, everything from smart locks to medical equipment to the cheap smart speaker sitting on a clearance shelf. The commands, now tracked as an official vulnerability under CVE 225840, could theoretically allow memory manipulation, device impersonation, and ways to bypass standard security audits entirely. The tell is the disagreement that followed. Tarlogic initially called this a backdoor. Other respected security researchers pushed back hard, pointing out that undocumented vendor-specific debug commands like these show up in Bluetooth chips from Broadcom, Cypress, and Texas Instruments too, and don't automatically mean something malicious. Espressif itself says they're internal debug commands, not a deliberate backdoor. Tarlogic later softened its own language to hidden feature. We're telling you the debate honestly instead of picking the scarier version, because a real documented CVE with real theoretical risk is worth knowing about, even without a confirmed villain behind it. The cost is what this represents either way, an entire category of budget hardware built on a chip that, at minimum, contains functionality nobody outside the manufacturer knew existed, sitting inside devices designed to listen to your home all day. Over 1 billion of these chips are already out in the world, which means this isn't a small, contained story even in the most generous reading of it. You won't believe what's coming up next, because this one isn't a $2 chip in an unfamiliar gadget. It's the company most people trust to run their entire smart home. Number 3, Google Home, running on Google Assistant, and this is the entry where the price tag of getting caught finally gets attached to a real number. The bait is integration. If you already live inside Google's world, search, maps, Gmail, Android, a Google speaker feels like the natural extension of everything you already use, tying your entire digital life together through one device. Here's the mechanic. In Google Assistant privacy litigation alleged that Google Home, Nest Hub, and Pixel devices were recording users through what the case calls false accepts, meaning the device activated and captured audio without anyone actually saying, "Hey Google" at all. Some of those recordings were then reportedly shared with third-party human reviewers. Google contractors were confirmed reviewing real voice recordings as far back as 2019, meaning this isn't a new concern that suddenly appeared. It's one that's been documented, on and off, for the better part of a decade. The tell is the settlement number itself, $68 million, preliminarily approved in March 2026, with claims currently open through August 27, 2026, and a final approval hearing scheduled for October 1. Google denies wrongdoing, same as everyone else on this list, but agreed to pay anyway after nearly 7 years of litigation. Here's the detail that matters most for anyone assuming this is already handled. Google didn't fix false accepts. Google retired the entire Google Assistant brand in 2026 in favor of a new system called Gemini. That's a full platform rebuild, not a confirmed repair. Nothing in the public record shows the underlying false activation problem was specifically diagnosed and corrected. You're not getting a patched version of the old system. You're getting a brand new one, with its own unknown track record replacing the one that just cost the company $68 million. If anything, a full rebuild makes it harder to know whether the same category of mistake is still sitting somewhere inside the new code, simply because there's less history to check it against. This next one might surprise you the most because it's the company that built its entire brand identity around not doing this exact thing. At number 2, Apple's HomePod, running Siri, and this is the entry that cuts the deepest, because privacy isn't just a feature Apple sells. It's the thing Tim Cook has personally called a fundamental human right in public, on stage, more than once. The bait is exactly that reputation. Closed ecosystem, on-device processing marketed heavily, a company that has spent a decade positioning itself as the trustworthy alternative to Amazon and Google specifically on this issue. Here's the mechanic. A lawsuit that ran for more than 5 years before reaching its settlement alleged Siri recorded private conversations even without the "Hey Siri" trigger phrase or a button press, and that some of those recordings were shared with third-party advertisers who then used them to target ads at the people recorded. The lawsuit specifically named HomePod alongside iPhone, iPad, and Mac as covered devices. The tell is what Apple chose to do about it. $95 million, approved in September 2025, covering current and former Siri device owners going back to September 2014. Apple denies any wrongdoing in the settlement documents, the same denial you'll find in nearly every case on this list, but the company still agreed to confirm deletion of any improperly captured audio and clarify its data practices going forward. Here's a detail that adds a strange new wrinkle to Apple's privacy-first branding. Reporting from January 2026 indicates Apple's newer Siri AI models are now partly built using technology from a deal with Google, the exact company sitting at number 3 on this very list. The company that built its entire identity on not being Google or Amazon now has some of Google's infrastructure running quietly behind its own voice assistant. That's not proof of wrongdoing on its own, but it's worth knowing the next time Apple's marketing leans on what happens on your device stays on your device. And now, the one I've saved for last, because unlike the other 3, this company didn't just fail to fix the problem while it was being sued, it made the problem measurably worse. Taking the number 1 spot, Amazon's Alexa, running on Echo devices, the single most widely owned smart speaker brand in the country, and the only one on this list where things went backward in the middle of active litigation. The bait is scale and price. The cheapest entry point of any brand on this list, the widest third-party device compatibility of any smart home ecosystem, and the deepest integration into Amazon's own shopping platform. Here's the mechanic. Multiple active cases are running against Amazon at once. One alleges Amazon violated federal and state wiretapping laws by recording conversations that never included the word Alexa at all. A related case, Wilkowski v. Amazon includes something the other entries on this list don't, a proposed bystander subclass covering people who never registered an Alexa device themselves but had their voice recorded and stored simply for being in the room when someone else's device was listening. Separately, an Illinois biometric privacy class covering anyone whose voice print Amazon created since 2014 was certified in late 2025. The tell is what happened in April 2026. A federal judge dismissed the broader Washington Consumer Protection Act claims, finding Amazon had technically disclosed its practices in the fine print. But the judge let the core wiretapping claims survive, specifically for Florida and Maryland residents, plus federal claims tied to those exact false wake recordings. This case is still active. No trial date has been set. No settlement has been reached. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you more than anything else on this list. In March 2025, while all of this was playing out in court, Amazon quietly removed the "Do not send voice recordings to the cloud" setting from Echo devices. That was the only local processing option Echo users ever had. By the Alexa Plus rollout in February 2026, it was gone completely. Every voice command now travels to Amazon servers by default, and Amazon's own language confirms those recordings remain accessible to Amazon employees during processing. While facing a wiretapping lawsuit, Amazon didn't add privacy protections. It removed the one that already existed. Sit with the order of events here for a second. The lawsuit alleging Amazon secretly records people was already filed. The company knew regulators and plaintiffs were actively scrutinizing exactly this behavior, and its response in the middle of all of it was to take away the one setting that let a customer keep their voice off Amazon's servers entirely. That's all for. Take a breath, because now we're flipping this completely. Here's how to actually cut down what these things here, starting today, no matter which one is already sitting in your house. Wait, before we continue. Every brand you just heard about has one thing in common. They have your data, whether it's leaked through spying or heard by the AI voice assistant. You usually don't find out until something's already gone wrong. Cover fixes that gap. It's built by the same team behind NordVPN, and it watches the dark web around the clock for your email, your social security number, your card numbers, and alerts you the second any of it shows up somewhere it shouldn't. If something does happen, you're not on your own. Cover backs you with up to $2 million in identity theft coverage and a real recovery specialist who walks you through fixing it. Try it risk-free with Cover's 30-day money-back guarantee. Check the link in the description if you're interested. Now let's go back to the safe choices. Tips to actually stay safe. Here's the good news buried under everything you just heard. You don't need to throw out your smart speaker to take back real control over it. A few specific habits genuinely reduce what these devices capture, starting the moment you use them, and none of them require any technical skill beyond opening a settings menu. 1. Physically mute the microphone when you're not actively using it. Most smart speakers have a hardware mute button or switch that cuts power to the microphone at the circuit level, not just a software toggle. If you're having a private conversation, hitting that switch is the only guarantee software settings can't override, because a hardware disconnect can't be quietly re-enabled by an app update the way a software setting can. 2. Go into your account settings and delete your voice history on a regular schedule. Every major platform lets you view and delete stored recordings. Set a recurring reminder, monthly if you can manage it, because these companies keep what you don't actively remove. 3. Secure the Wi-Fi network the speaker actually connects to. Use WPA2 or WPA3 encryption, a strong unique password, and if your router supports it, put smart home devices on a separate guest network away from your computers and phones. A compromised smart speaker shouldn't be a stepping stone to everything else on your network. 4. Turn off voice purchasing. Every major platform allows shopping by voice by default. Disabling it removes an entire category of risk, from a curious kid to a stranger shouting through a window, and it takes about 30 seconds in the settings menu. 5. Put multi-factor authentication on the actual account tied to the device. The speaker itself isn't really the vulnerable point. The Amazon, Google, or Apple account behind it is, since that account is where your voice history, purchase history, and personal data actually live. One last thing worth remembering, especially after everything in this video, a company settling a lawsuit is not the same thing as a company fixing the behavior that caused it. Treat every "we take your privacy seriously" statement as a starting point for your own settings, not the end of the conversation. That's 4 smart speaker brands and categories tied to real lawsuits, real settlements, and a legitimate piece of independent security research, backed by federal court filings and cybersecurity researchers' own findings, and 5 habits that actually reduce what these devices hear starting today. The scariest part of this story isn't that these devices sometimes listen when they shouldn't. It's that every company involved had the exact same opportunity to fix it and chose a settlement check and a rebrand instead. Nobody buying a smart speaker set out to install a listening device in their kitchen. They set out to set a timer and check the weather hands-free, and that convenience is exactly what this entire industry has been built to monetize quietly in the background. The 5 tips in this video won't make any of these devices perfectly private, but they close the easiest, most avoidable gaps, the ones sitting one settings menu away the entire time. If this changed how you think about the speaker on your counter, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me which of these 4 you own, or which safety tip you're actually going to use today. Share this with anyone in your life who talks freely in front of one of these devices without thinking twice about it. Subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next, because these settlements and this research are all still actively developing. Stay sharp, stay safe, and watch the next videos.